Welcome back to Words of Paradise. I'm your host, Leon Idle, and let me tell you, if Velma is not just the gift that keeps on giving, it has just united everyone. Racists and anti-racists, Democrats, Republicans, cats and dogs, the woke, the anti-woke, all coming together to sing Kumbaya and loathe this show in unity. It is beautiful. And to celebrate, we have an article. Please stop hate watching Velma. You're doing it for all the wrong reasons. Well, maybe this individual has a point. I mean, we should probably stop hate watching Velma, but at this point, the damage is done, right? Who truly cares? I mean, if the show gets to season 2, but no one's going to watch that, so it's still going to fail. So why stop hate watching it? Get more people in on the hate. Bring it in. Hug your brothers and sisters while loathing this show together. But in all fairness, maybe they have a point, so let's read through and see. Velma isn't good. Well, wait to state the obvious out the gate, but alright. Velma isn't good. I don't feel conflicted about saying that after watching the show and trying my best to avoid all the overblown internet hate. I don't know if I'd call it overblown, but alright. It was doomed from the start, really, with the edgy adult humor and showrunner Mindy Kaling's misguided tone failing to capture the appeal of these characters as she turned them into hateful, cynical, and bizarre renditions of personalities that didn't need changing, only adjusted to fit an older audience while keeping all the same charm we know and love. Okay, to this article's credit, so far I actually agree, especially this part right here, only adjusted to fit an older audience. Well, we've seen that before, specifically with Scooby-Doo, the original live-action movies. Scooby-Doo and Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed, they both did exactly that. They just adjusted it to be a little bit edgier, to be PG-13. You would never catch Freddy in the 70s getting stuck in Daphne's body and saying, I can look at myself naked. But in the movies, it worked. So, yeah, who's to say it wouldn't have worked again if done right? I think that this... Who is this author? Jade King. Let's take a look here. I won't lie. Maybe this is my own bias, but I expected you to be Asian, Jade. Anyway, back to the article. We could have had something quite mature and groundbreaking here, but instead, Kaling feels far more interested in plastering her own dated ideals and conservative jokes onto a premise that should have been about personal growth and supernatural mysteries. Okay, did you watch the show? I don't know where you're getting the... Yeah, okay, yes, they had the one #MeToo joke. That was a conservative joke, I'll give you that. But maybe, and just hear me out, maybe it wasn't conservative so much so as just absurdist. It was calling out an absurdity. It was also the only line in the show that actually had the potential to be funny, but even then, the cadence and the delivery screwed it up, as well as the downright unlikability of the character. But that's neither here nor there. The point is, okay, it makes a Me Too joke. That doesn't mean the show's conservative. In the second episode, there's also an I'm with her joke, like a pro-Hillary Clinton joke, that's written on a protestor's sign when protesting against Freddy for the murders that he, committed. So it takes shots at both sides. I said that in my previous Velma review, that it doesn't know who its audience is because it makes jokes for both the right and the left, and since neither are funny, the right and left have just sort of come together to hate it. But that's what comedy used to be. Comedy used to be making fun of both sides. I at least kind of give the show credit for trying to do that. It just fails at the important thing when it comes to being a comedy, which is, being funny. Now, I'm going to give you a pass on this one because you haven't quite proven to be an idiot yet, Jade, but don't make me defend this show again. I won't do it. Yes, it features a lesbian kiss between Velma and Daphne, and even subverts typical character tropes in a few ways, but this interpretation of Mr. Ink is so spiteful that it becomes difficult to root for any of the members involved, let alone relate to them. Okay, you're getting back on track, Jade. You're getting back on track. I can agree with this. Ever since the first teaser trailer and synopsis for Velma dropped back in 2022, we labeled it a disaster. Shaggy is a rebellious stoner with a heart of gold. Okay, once again, you're making me question if you actually watched it, because it goes out of his way to say he's not a stoner. In fact, he's annoyed with stoners, but alright. Fred is a preppy rich kid satirizing white privilege, with Daphne fills the role of the ultra-attractive popular girl with no interest in losers like Velma, who herself is the typical pile of tropes female Indian characters are so often subject to. Name 5. Jade, name 5 female Indian characters with the tropes that Velma's subject to, not including Mindy Kaling's character from The Office, because that's still Mindy Kaling. Or, you know what, I'll let you include her. Then name 4. You probably can't do it. You'd think that Kaylin would know better, but jokes are still made at the expense of her masculine figure, hairy arms, and unattractiveness, tired gags, and the wider community has already called out the misogynistic attempts at humor they are. Alright, Jade, you're losing me. You're losing me hard. You don't get to tell people what they can and can't make jokes about. You don't have that right. You don't get to be the arbiter of what can and can't be joked about, Jade. Not only that, but I just checked your profile. You're white. Don't you think maybe, given how you seem, you lean a certain way, if I had to guess. And I'm pretty sure the way you lean would call you racist for telling a brown girl what she can and can't do. So maybe reel it back in and let's move on. There's a lot worth critiquing about Velma, and how despite all the progress adult animation has made in the past decade when it comes to moving past the likes of Family Guy and Big Mouth. What? Big Mouth was literally in the past decade. What, wasn't it? Big Mouth Season 1 came out in 2017. How can you say the past decade? Like, that doesn't make sense. Animation is capable of appealing to older audiences without resorting to lazy cultural references, hateful cynicism, and immature reliance on sex and drugs. But Velma leans into all these ideas without the writing talent to ever do anything worthwhile with them. I mean, hateful cynicism is literally what like BoJack Horseman and Archer are both renowned for at certain times, and they're great. Well, at least Archer's great. BoJack Horseman started off great, but got lost in the message, and much like Velma, forgot to actually be funny. But it starts off really great. All the cringe-inducing jokes and screenshots you've seen go viral on Twitter aren't fully representative of the show. I'd say the show is even worse than those screenshots make it out to be, but they aren't far off. It's not good, although the derision hasn't stopped Velma from taking over the online discourse in the same week. Much better and more progressive shows, I think you might be supposed to have like a comma or a period somewhere. You got a run-on sentence here, but let's start over. It's not good, although this derision hasn't stopped Velma from taking over online discourse in the same week. Much better and more progressive shows like Inside Job and Dead End Paranormal Park were canceled without nearly as much public outrage. Jade, just from me to you, proofread. As far as Inside Job and Dead End Paranormal Park, those weren't adaptations of a beloved multi-generational IP, so you really can't compare them. You know, if you want to make a comparison, compare it to something like Avenue Q. Avenue Q is like a parody of Sesame Street, but you can tell that it cares about the source material. It cares about the tropes and things that Sesame Street offered, and so when it makes fun of them in a very adult-oriented way, you get the jokes because it loves its source material. It's paying homage in this weird yin-yang sort of way. Whereas Velma, it seems like the creators loathe the source material. They want this as far removed from Scooby-Doo as possible, with the exception of the character names and semi-designs. HBO Max uploaded the Velma trailer to YouTube 4 days ago, and it already has 9.6 million views and counting. I'm willing to bet that very few of these are huge fans of the show. They're watching out of morbid curiosity, or to soak up the hate that spilled all over the place in response to the first few episodes. The thing is, HBO won't be paying much attention to its negative reviews and online conversation when the traffic metrics speak for themselves. If a streaming original is doing numbers and everyone's talking about it, chances are it will end up being renewed for a second season, and we'll only have ourselves to blame. Velma is a hit, and that's all it ever needed to be. What do you mean we only have ourselves to blame? Like, okay, so enough people hate watch the show that it gets a season 2. People just won't watch season 2, and it won't get a season 3. When you say we have ourselves to blame, like, it's not like anyone's going to tie us down and force us to watch Velma season 2. That's not going to happen. So, okay, it gets canceled after season 2 instead of season 1. Who does that impact? Like, why is that a big deal? I don't get what you're trying to say here. What is your point? What should we have done? Are you saying we should just shut up and not talk about Velma at all? Well, why stifle dialogue when people are having fun and getting along and joking and just basically coming together, which is what I thought people like you have always wanted, is for everyone to come together and understand one another. We finally all come to an understanding. The understanding is, oh my god, this show sucks. And now even that's not good enough for you? Just what is your point, Jade? Reboots or reimaginings of beloved properties like Scooby-Doo have long become punching bags for reactionary YouTubers. Well, okay, I mean, if you want, just come at us like that. I mean, I guess I could say the same about you, just you are a journalist instead of, a YouTuber, but you're kind of doing the same thing. But anyway, let's keep going. and the loudest voices in the room, with wild accusations of the things they loved as children being radicalized by woke politics and inaccurate character designs and stories because they can't fathom the concept of things moving on and adapting for a newer generation. Alrighty, there's a lot to unpack in this whole snippet right here, so let's do it as quickly and concisely as possible. It is lesson time. Break out your notepads because we are about to enter Leon Idol's Writing 101, folks. Woke politics. Most individuals do not care if there are woke politics or conservative politics in the show. What they want is escapism. They don't want politics at all. We've already got enough of that bogus in real life. We've already got that stuff rattling around on social media and in our own personal lives all the time. When you pop on Scooby-Doo or SpongeBob SquarePants or Resident Evil or whatever your entertainment medium of choice is, you don't want to be reminded about the politics and social issues of the outside world because the point of escapism is to escape. That's why the Lord of the Rings trilogy by Peter Jackson will forever hold up. Inaccurate character designs. Alright, I get it. I checked your profile. I know you're white. I'll say what you won't say, even though I'm also white. You're talking about race swapping. Look, race swapping is not inherently bad. I'll be the first to say it. It's also not inherently good either. If race swapping can add something to a character that has not been there before, add something new, then sure, go for it. Explore that avenue. However, if it cannot, and 9 times out of 10, it sure doesn't, add anything new aside from a pat yourself on the back because now you have a black version of the character that other than that is effectively exactly the same. You haven't done anything new, therefore it was an unjustifiable change, and you're only doing it for political and ideological reasons and Twitter points. So yes, inaccurate character designs are a problem when they're not being done for the right reasons, which they are not 9 times out of 10. And last but not least, stories, because they can't fathom the concept of things moving on and adapting for a newer generation. The modern stories aren't good. It's that simple. There's a reason why, like I just mentioned, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, why those hold up, but Rings of Power already doesn't. There's a reason why the original Star Wars trilogy holds up, but even the prequels were divisive, as well as the sequels being even worse than that. Even though I love the prequels, I've always loved the prequels, always been an apologist. That's neither here nor there. The point is, if your modern things that you're writing aren't good, and we can go back to the original things and just show that our kids show our kids the things that we watched, or our parents watched, or our grandparents watched, and those are even better, they hold up more and give better messages and learning experiences, why continue with the new stuff? It's not that you're destroying our childhood. That old stuff will always be there. But you are tarnishing the legacy of the property as a whole if you are adding garbage to it. It's kind of like buying a new house. You move in, and the carpet's nice and clean, and the walls don't have scuffs on them, and everything's nice, new, and shiny. After you live in that house 5 years, if you take great care of it, hopefully the vast majority of that will be true. But if you're an absolute pig, a disgusting slob, a filthy mole person, and you decide to get mud all over the walls and stain the carpets and trash all over the floor, well, guess what? You ruined the legacy of the house. You still have the memories of when the house was nice and clean and good, but you ruined it. At the end of the day, you still ruined the whole, even if the memories of what was there are still there. It's not the same anymore. Alrighty, sorry about that. Class dismissed. Hope you took plenty of notes. Let's finish this article up. Now, I hate to say it, but Velma is a rare occasion of them being even the slightest bit correct, which is where this concept of hate watching, man, I bet you had to just grit your teeth and bite your tongue before you got that out, or typed it out, or whatever. Anyway, which is where this concept of hate watching the show to fuel the fires of vitriol spawned from the first place. But by leaning into this realm of aggressive hate without the consideration for more nuanced critique, we aren't doing any better. We're doing the right thing by bringing Mindy Kaling and her J.K. Rowling tweet-liking ass. There's already enough going on with the Hogwarts Legacy stuff. Do you have to bring J.K. Rowling into Scooby-Doo now as well? Move on. Anyway, tweet-liking ass to show that not only disrespects beloved characters, but turns them into stereotypes with unrealistic motivations. Yet we only assist the bottom line by watching it regardless just so we can dunk on it for Twitter points or join in a conversation that only serves to make us more miserable in the first place. I feel like you're kind of projecting. I think a lot of the people dunking on this show are having fun doing it. I mean, maybe you could say misery loves company, but really, yeah, watching the show itself was a miserable experience. All the fun I've had talking about that miserable experience afterwards has been glorious. And I think a lot of folks feel the same. Not only that, but again, it seems like you're projecting. If people are having fun dunking on the show together, why stop them? People are happy. Isn't one of the big things that you want, at least I assume what your political leanings are from the way you're writing and talking, isn't one of the big things you want is for everyone to come together and agree and be understanding and not judge and all this, sappy, rom-com stuff? Well, now we're doing it. If my neighbor was a black guy, and he and I, me the white guy, him the black guy, sat down and had a beer together laughing about how awful the Velma show is, wouldn't that be great interracial unity? Wouldn't you cheer for that? And Velma is what brought us together. I mean, wouldn't that be a good thing? What is your point? I don't get what you're trying to do here. Some of the biggest movie trailers in the world can't even manage almost 10 million views over a long weekend, while hate alone helped Velma reach that milestone. HBO is watching the numbers and not the cultural impact, even more so when it has spent the last year taking down countless animated shows from Max for tax breaks. Yeah, I don't know what you want. I really don't know what you want. Mutuals of mine who did some incredible character designs and artwork for Velma, the aesthetic of which is one of the few positive things about it. Alright, Jade, that's the third strike. Get your eyes checked. You're wrong. The show is awful. It is Bush League weak, and you clearly don't have concept of what good art and or animation is. Get your eyes checked, because while Velma might need her mom's glasses and not actually need glasses to see, you clearly do. Are subject to online abuse purely for being involved, because those dunking on Velma don't understand the root cause of its flaws or where to point the fingers at. They merely enjoy hating on things for the thrill. Once again, same kind of like you're projecting, give me some examples. We could instead be lifting up better shows and creators so they actually have a chance to tell their stories instead of clinging onto the nostalgic husk of a mediocre reboot. Dude, you are one holier-than-thou writer, ain't you? Velma could have been quite special, and I wish it was, but it feels like an awkward half-step between a bold reimagining of the Scooby-Doo universe and a self-indulgent spiral of hate directed at the people Mindy Kaling really didn't like in high school. There was nothing wrong with labeling it disappointing or critiquing how it represents the cynical reality of adult animation in the eyes of corporations right now, but we knew it was going to be bad, and still we spent the past week watching it, memeing it, and drawing more eyes onto a show that, by our own admittance, doesn't deserve the attention. So why are we giving it the spotlight? Well, look here, Jade. I could ask the same question about your article. Why am I giving it a spotlight? And the answer is twofold. One, it is fun to dunk on dumb shit. Velma and your article are both quite ridiculous, and they're going to be fun to dunk on. And the other answer is to bring conversations to light, to have dialogues. There might be people that absolutely agree with you when they watch this video and completely disagree with me, and I will love to talk to them about those views in the comments below in a respectful and productive manner. Or they can let me know on Twitter at BoltTheWord if they want to have the discussion there. By the way, guys who watch this, girls who watch this, and anything in between, let me know your thoughts on this article, Velma as a whole, and basically anything else you want, and please do subscribe. Check out my most recent videos on the most entitled of Disney adults, as well as Gwen Stefani being racist towards the Japanese. Or was she? And if neither of those are up your alley, then I've got videos on pretty much all the rest of the nerdy subjects. Anime, Magic the Gathering, Dungeons & Dragons, you name it. But you gotta be here for the news in the nerdosphere. So by all means, subscribe, and I will see you next time on Words of Paradise.